That's one small step for brands, one giant leap for brandkind.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Food Chain Podcast. Today's guest, we have Eli Weiss, the VP of Retention Advocacy at Yotpo, and the founder of All Things CX and Retention newsletter. Welcome to the show, Eli.
Thanks for having me.
So Eli, you're now at Yotpo. We're gonna work backwards from when you started at Simulate to then Olipop and then Jones Roads and then Yotpo. I wanted to start with, how did you end up at Simulate? How was that? I remember Nugs was a whole phenomenon back in the day. Tell me more about that.
Oh God, we're kicking off with a storm. I started my career in luggage, actually. So I'm number 2 of 10 children, grew up Orthodox Jewish, had no clue anything about this world, didn't finish high school, didn't go to college, was a degenerate in my early 20s. So traveled the world with like points. I had $800 in my bank account. And all of a sudden I'm like 21 years old, 22, and have no idea what I'm going to do for a living. Was in Tel Aviv at the time, got a job at this luggage company, my first ever CX job. I had no idea what CX is. I just knew that I'm like a really obnoxious customer and I know exactly what I want to be told, but I will torment the CX team until they say I'm sorry. Like, you will not just say, we are so blah, blah, blah. Like, apologize because I just spent $50 on your bullshit. So jumped in, they were like, we just need somebody who can speak English and handle these like super angry customers. Jumped in CX, but really was doing everything else. So operations, logistics, 4 warehouses, shipping to 64 countries, Amazon ads. Like, I was learning everything other than finance and design. Moved back to the US in 2018, was just kind of working remote for this luggage company. And then at 2020, COVID, luggage company shuts down. Nugs was one of the roles I came across on like LinkedIn. They were like, you're overqualified. It's a CX associate role. And I was like, okay, but this company's in the zeitgeist. I need to do what it takes to just get this role, because I applied to like 80 something jobs, couldn't get a job because no one knew what this luggage company was. Did the interview. They were like, you're overqualified. I was like, I'll eat shit. I want the job. I took the job. Suddenly I'm like answering like 5,000 tickets a month all on my own. It's like hundreds of tickets a day. And at some point, like 3-4 weeks in, it's like 5 days a week. And then it's 6 days a week. And then like everyone's in the office 6 days a week, 12 hours a day. And the subway's not even working because it's COVID. And I was like, on one hand, I love working hard. On the other hand, I hate being told to work hard. So like if I was working, I probably work 16 hours a day now, but it's because I want to. Being told to come in on a Saturday to hustle chicken nuggets when this train wasn't working was just like not my cup of tea. I think 4 years at the luggage company, 6 weeks at Nugs, I was like, this company will do wonderful things, but it'll probably be without me. So I left, which was very challenging, like to mentally tell myself that maybe it could be I'm the problem. And I'm telling myself, no, you're not the problem. You did 4 years, 6 weeks. You learned that the culture is not for you. I left and I had started building this like online thing where I spoke about CX because I hated leaving my house. I'm an introvert, hate the idea of ever leaving, and the idea that I can build a network around my thing I care about. Everyone's talking about growth, all the growth guys, me talking about CX. I get a cold outreach from Kevin Lee from EMI, who most of your followers probably know. This is pre-launch of EMI. He basically says, hey, I'm trying to hire a CX person. Love your work at Nugs. We start talking. He's looking to hire in 6 months. I'm looking to leave tomorrow. He introduces me to Steven Vigilante from Olipop. Olipop is hiring a director of CX. They had already about to move forward with somebody else. I jumped in, turned the 30-minute interview to 60, and somehow got a job at Olipop from an associate at Nugs overnight. A company no one really knew of in 2020, but that's kind of my simulate to Olipop.
Interesting. So first things first, I have a very close tie-in with luggage. Me and my now fiance went on a trip to get engaged in May, and we used, I think, KLM to get to Amsterdam, then to get to Madrid or something. And her away luggage got like decimated, dented so hard. We took pictures, sent them in. They're trying to deny all like accountability. They said, maybe you need to go get an appraisal on what it would cost. She went and got the appraisal. Then they said, oh, you don't have proof of purchase. And it was a gift. So she somehow like went on the credit card company, said, hey, this is my luggage. And like, here's like my serial number or something. And they were able to identify her proof of purchase or her gifting. But it's been months. And I wish you were working for a KLM because they just do not want to pay for that thing.
The funny part is Away has like a lifetime warranty. Maybe go the Away route.
I'll tell her to do that. Yeah, it's been just some whole nightmare process. We were just talking about it yesterday on our walk. I'm like, geez, is this still really going on?
Yes, luggage is like one of those topics that I still know so much about because I've spent 4 years of my life there, and then had kind of like went to chicken nuggets, got like a quick MBA on everything related to vegan chicken. And then Olipop was just like going from this role of just answering thousands of tickets to now, what does CX look like in a company that's obsessed with CX? What does CX look like in a company that has like high EQ individuals that are trying to build a brand? Like, people ask me often, like, what was Olipop like in the early days, right? And I wasn't that early. I was number 16. Like, they've been around for 2 years. But the bits and pieces of Olipop becoming a brand was they were thinking about brand from a CX lens in 2020. Like, how do we deliver a brand that makes people feel a certain kind of way? And then I like jumped into the subscription side and the retention side and the email and SMS side and all that. But it is refreshing to think about like our time at Olipop and how deep they were in the CX side when the brand was mostly sold in retail. Maybe we had a couple of thousand customers. We weren't that big.
Where do you think that stems from? Why were they so obsessed with customer? When I was at Quest Nutrition, like we had to read Tony Hsieh's book, Delivering Happiness, like that we had to live and die by that. So where do you think that came from with them?
I think, and this is where we get a little spicy. It's like I've spoken to probably hundreds of founders at this point in the last 5 years. Everyone loves to say they're obsessed with CX. I know, no, like 90+% don't care. They care about it in theory. It's like, yes, I want my customers to love me because they'll spend more money. But when it comes to the practice of like, what am I willing to put in the line for somebody to like me more? Like, how much am I willing to give both my own time, the refund that I need to, the reshipment, the get customers involved in it, like that level of sophistication. Like I remember the Olipop interview process was like, I spoke to this HR person just talking about whatever. They're like, yeah, like generally we wouldn't even talk to you. We already have another offer basically going out tomorrow. And I just was like, no, I promise you, the other person you're talking to doesn't care as deeply as I do about doing something different. And I'm taking a bet here, but it feels like you guys are launching healthy soda in a market that 90+% are drinking Coke and Pepsi. It feels like you're trying to do something different. And I know I'm the person. And then my second interview was with David. And then I spoke to Ben, like speaking to both co-founders in that process, like they're pitching exactly what I want to do. Like we want customers to feel different. Like we don't want to come across as judgmental that they're drinking 6 cans of Coke a day. We want them to deeply understand that we're doing this because we care and we want to meet them where they're at. So like all this like fluffy messaging that you hear a $1 billion company saying, they were talking about when they were tiny. Both founders, I think, have like reasonably high EQ, have had like somewhat challenges in their life, deeply understand the value of meeting customers where they're at. And I think they cared about that before Olipop. And when most people say we care about CX, it's just a cash grab. And I think that's like what it boils down to. It's like, if CX is a cash grab, it'll work. Like you'll be able to like refund the customer and tell them to use that refund towards the next purchase. Like you can hack your way to CX bringing up AOV. That's why I kind of like love and hate growth marketing, right? Because on one hand, it's like, yes, you can hack your way to drive more customer value, but is the customer feeling valued? Like, are you hacking your way to customers liking your brand more? Or are you just kind of grabbing cash today and hoping your product is good enough that they come back in 6 months?
Yeah, that reminds me of something we used to do back in the nightlife industry. Handing out a gift card that's worth $25 is like 2 or 3 drinks, but that shot of Tito's or that ounce and a half of Tito's that goes in it, it's like not even $1. So it's that perceived value of like, hey, we're going to take care of you. So I give out gift cards like hotcakes back in the day in the nightlife industry. I want to talk more about Olipop. Back in the day, and this is obviously, I have a soda company. This is a soda company's podcast. It always interests me, and when they flipped that switch, when they went from a social tonic to really owning that 4-letter word. Because when I launched Perfy in 2022, and when I was developing it in 2021, everyone was afraid to say the word soda. There's, I think Martin Caballero from BevNet says, who's going to step up and save soda? And like, I think I launched with soda's a 4-letter word and soda's back. And then those sorts of things. I really wanted to try to own that word. But then when Goliaths like Olipop and Poppy start owning it, it's like, all right, we'll take a step back.
So a few things. It's something I was actually thinking about this week of, I was talking to a brand that's in food and beverage that's growing from like 0 to 100 million in a year, like one of those massive breakout brands. And they were talking to me yesterday actually, about like, how do we think about going from this premium brand to like Walmart? And how do you balance that existence of like being this like we're the cool brand that only the top 10% can afford to being like the everyday brand. And when you think about Olipop going from like Erewhon and Sprouts to every Walmart in the country, the pricing didn't change as much as the perception did, right? So like Olipop, yes, they were $3 and then they went down to $2. It's not like dramatic, meaning it's still very expensive in terms of like comparing it to a soda. What changed was the openness and the kind of like brand going wide as like the how is this kind of like open and acceptable and relevant to everyone? And part of that is when you think about the price perception story you're telling, you start as like, we have to justify that this is $4. And in order to justify that, it's a healthy tonic. Because also the person that's spending $4 is not trying to buy a soda. And then as you get up that mountain, you're like, okay, we're a healthy tonic that fills the categories that soda fills. So we're very focused on barbecue and pizza and burgers, but we're still kind of like a tonic. We're still kind of like what you drink at night. So you build out occasions. And then you get to the point where you're like, okay, now we have to capture Walmart, Target. And then I think you can either do it the lazy way, which you just say, okay, now we're a soda. What Olipop did, which was very sophisticated, and I don't know to what degree they kind of like built this out, but they said, okay, let's find celebrities to work with that are kind of like, that have this cross-functional, much wider group of fans. So you go like Camila Cabello to announce the Walmart launch. And then I think like kind of like pulling that all together, you had like a new kind of soda. And that was like the Olipop taking the step. And that was probably around like 21, 22 is when Olipop said like, you saw all the wobblers and all the kind of like things on those circle things on the floor, whatever they're called in trade marketing, where you saw everything kind of pointing towards a new kind of soda, which was Olipop kind of taking this, what usually probably takes 10 years, doing it in a span of 4, of kind of like capturing the important market, then kind of trying to go wider and wider and wider. And then you saw them go towards like stadiums and events. And like now they're trying to fill that, like Steven talks about this culture, the culture circle that they're trying to fill, but calling it a soda is part of that.
I remember watching all of these things in real time. And by the way, it's Floor Trippers.
Yes.
In trade marketing, Floor Trippers. Epic moves they made. It felt like overnight it was just an insane explosion of like that competition between Poppy and Olipop, and like Coke and Pepsi, those enormous brands almost took a sidestep to these two new brands just going head to head back and forth. And it was so interesting to watch. And me, I'm just like eating popcorn, hoping like one takes the other out or whatever happens to make it easier on me. But
I will say though, like, I think the most important thing that we spoke about internally was, in order to become a Coke, you need a Pepsi. Like if there was no Pepsi, there would be no Coke. Like Coke would have been an eighth of the size. And every like Health Aid would not be Health Aid without GTs and vice versa. And I think every category needs a few players. And even like the Perfys and the Culture Pops, I mean, like the category needs, in order to create a category, like Olipop would not be Olipop without Poppy and vice versa. Like, yeah, was it a bummer that Mother Beverage suddenly became Poppy after Olipop launches? Yeah, when customers say like Raspberry Rose is terrible or delicious and you know they're not talking about you, like, yes, was it close? But I think like the tide in this case really brought up the ships. Like both Olipop and Poppy have seen tremendous success because they capture, I mean, like Poppy going after Super Bowl commercials while Olipop going after teams. I mean, this is like the two Davids, you know?
Yeah, 100%. It's interesting you say that every Coke needs its Pepsi, because that was the mentality at Quest Nutrition. I remember to this day, no one will ever know this brand besides probably Clark, who's still at Quest in social media. But there was a brand called Crave. And it was in this see-through, like really shitty packaging. It had a sticker and it said Crave with a K. That was probably the best bar that we were like, ooh, this might have a chance. But I think they got sued to oblivion from like Kellogg's or something like that because of the name Crave, and they disappeared and fell off the map. We always had that same mentality. It ended up being One Bar, RX Bar, Cliff Kind, those sorts of competitors that kind of everyone rose up at the same time. And it's another interesting thing that, especially talking with investors, they're always like, well, Olipop and Poppy are already going to win. No one else is ever going to win in this game. I'm like, that's not necessarily true, because I built off those 5 bars, and now there's IQ Bar, there's Mosh, there's Barbells, there's Anabar. Like, there's so many different bars that are still winning. I think it's just flawed logic that only Olipop and Poppy can win.
I tend to agree. I mean, like KDP is a substantial business, right? Like there's there's a bunch of beverages. And I think like the current, if you walk into any Walmart, Target, 70% of the aisle is still Coke. So like plenty of people can have a few meals out of that and still kind of have Coke be a multi-zillion dollar business. Like I think there's so much opportunity. You're talking about like 90+% of households have soda. So, I mean, you're thinking in terms of flavor, in terms of style. I mean, like Twizzlers hasn't stopped releasing 37 flavors. Oreo has 500. I mean, like this category is much, much bigger than Olipop and Poppy, in my opinion. Like unless those two grow dramatically bigger, like 500 million, 600 million, $1 billion in revenue, it's not that big when you look at the TAM here.
Definitely. And I know that there's some grocers on the eastern coast of the United States who are looking to expand their sets to 18 feet of functional soda versus what was just a couple feet years ago.
I mean, a couple of years ago, it didn't exist at all. It was like Health Aid. It was kombucha. And then it was like you had two facings in the fridge in the front, right? It was like, Poppy pushed towards being kind of like out of the fridge. And that was like monumental. It was nothing.
Yeah. Let's switch gears over to how you transitioned from Olipop to Jones Road Beauty, and then tell me more about that.
Olipop was like the greatest year and a half, almost 2 years of my professional life. Like it gave me the opportunity to lean into one of the fastest growing brands in the world. And culture wise, Olipop is second to none. Like they deeply cared. Like we would start all hands with meditation. Like they truly believed in putting the mind first. They push people to take PTO. I mean, like what you're seeing in the news now, like Olipop says they force people to take PTO. Like that's not a PR game. Like they've been doing this for years. I have never seen a business like Olipop that builds with people first the way they do. And to think the success they've had by putting people first, I don't think I'll ever work at a company like that again at that level. Now, the hard part is I'm a generalist, and you read The Range by David Epstein and you're inspired by like the idea that everyone can be a generalist, but generalists in general have no room. Like unless you're starting a company or working super early at a early stage company, like you choose one thing and you do it well. And at Olipop, I started as director of customer experience. Within 2 weeks, I was touching subscription. I was doing a ton of retention. I was like doing all the things. And as the company started growing more and more and more, you go from 16 to 75. Suddenly it's like, Eli, I need you to focus just on CX, really just deep on that. And I just got bored. Company gets big, a ton of people. And I remember just talking to one of the leaders there and saying like, I don't know. I just think 75-person companies are not for me. And she was like, you can't just jump ship when a company gets to a certain size. And I was like, watch me. And the combination of just like getting bored and a little antsy, followed by like no real incentive. Like there was no vesting. There was nothing. There was no incentive for me to stick around. And then I just made friends with Cody, who was a Twitter friend, getting a call with him. Turns out his mom is the CEO or is the founder of Bobby Brown, who's now in this brand that went from like 0 to 60 million in 2 years. What was exciting for me about Jones Road was very early. So yes, they were doing a lot of revenue, but the team was tiny. I was excited that they were solely D2C with no retail. So it gave me an opportunity to flex like a just D2C, which Olipop was more and more retail when I, as the time went on. They were opening their own stores. It was a celebrity brand. Like there were a lot of learnings for me that were different, and it was beauty. And I knew nothing about beauty. And I love, as somebody that has like a non-traditional background, I just love the challenge of learning something from zero. I learned everything about suitcases, learning about soda is easy, learning about chicken nuggets is easy, learning about beauty as somebody that never wore makeup is hard. Same kind of story. Cody wanted to hire me. First conversation with Bobby, she's like, I am talking to somebody that has spent a decade in Tiffany's and I'm about to hire her. My son said I should talk to you. Like, why would I hire you? You're a dude, you never wore makeup. Something about my DNA is I just love being doubted. It's just my favorite thing in the world. And she just got me fired up. And I was like, do you want Tiffany's? Because I don't think you do. Like you built Bobby Brown Cosmetics. You don't want Tiffany's. You want Bobby Brown. You want Jones Road Beauty. Like you want to do things differently. I promise you, learning about mascara is easy. Like I will care more deeply than anyone else. I will make sure every customer is happy. I will build an experience people talk about. And we did. A year and a half, 2 years later, built out the team, built a community of 75,000. At that point it was probably 50,000, now 70 something thousand, community on Facebook, built out like early access, surprise and delight. Like we truly built out a retention and customer experience that I think we were very proud of. Year and a half, 2 years in, again, like got to, I think it's more myself than the business I was at, but I got to a point where I think about the Venn diagram of like doing things you like and doing things that feel challenging. And I think very often businesses push you towards challenging and convincing you it's going to be the thing you like. And, you know, like the Japanese ikigai, like what you're great at and and I think that's somewhat bullshit because like it's very rare to find something you're great at that you love doing without having the challenge. And the challenge can make you hate the thing you're doing. If it's, and what I learned the hard way is if it's challenging in the wrong direction or a direction you're not excited about, it's not the fun challenge. So in their case, like they needed somebody that was much more analytical and better at spreadsheets than I am. I can go my whole life and never do a VLOOKUP. I just don't like it. I like the art more than the science. I don't like spreadsheets. I don't like numbers. And yes, as a senior director of retention, you have to know numbers. And that was a challenge where I got to a point where it's like, I don't like that challenge. I'm getting a little interested in a midlife crisis. I also started writing this newsletter, and the newsletter is like at a point driving more than my job in terms of revenue. And that's a great thing, but also pushes you towards the brink where, you know, my whole childhood was running after how can I feel safe with money? How can I make more money so I feel safe? And now once you pass, if money is just safety, once you feel safe, you hit existentialism where it's like, okay, now what? Yeah, I can make more. I'm not going to feel safer, right? Like once you hit a certain number, it's just like, and for me, that number is not that high. And once you hit that number, it's like, okay, now I'm safe. Do I love what I'm doing? Sometimes. Is it like the thing I want to do forever? Likely not. Maybe I just do the newsletter. Maybe I do some consulting. I don't know. And during that time frame, Yotpo sponsors my newsletter. I have churned Yotpo 3 times. I have said nasty things about Yotpo on Twitter. I was like a known Yotpo, whatever the opposite of advocate is. They sponsor my newsletter. I was like talking to somebody about this midlife crisis brewing that I don't know, like, do I leave one of the fastest growing beauty brands in the world that like, this is, I'm crushing right now. Do I leave? And he was like, I honestly think you should talk to this Tomer from Yotpo. And I was like, dude, stop. He was like, no, not as a job. Just like, I think he's super wise, has been through a lot, has hired 1,000+ people. He knows people, like just talk to him. And I was like, it's funny. He sponsored my newsletter. I grab a chat with Tomer, like 2 minutes in, he's like, you're an entrepreneur without the risk tolerance. And I was like, I think that's a good observation. I like a paycheck, but I like building. And he pitched me like this insane, how can I say no to job in terms of function? Like money is not important for me as much. It was like, you can literally come in, take all your anti-negative, your anti-Yotpo bias and try to change us internally. And the title is misleading, means nothing. The role changes at least once a quarter, like at least once a quarter based on what I feel and what the company feels is like the best use of my time. And my ADHD is thriving. Right? I have 37 tabs open. I jump from thing to thing and I just get to do like something really hard and really challenging that's out of my scope, but is exciting for me. And I've learned that when things are out of my scope, if they're not VLOOKUP, they could actually be a fun challenge. And challenge for the sake of challenge is like something I'm kind of over.
I want to go back to the mention of Ikigai because that's exactly what I thought of when you brought up the Venn diagram. I tend to believe that there are certain things like that I love in this world where if I get paid for playing the drums, that's my Ikigai. That's not my first love after my mom, but like that's my place. That's my flow. That's where I go when things are the toughest. I've got a certain setup behind my drum set that helps me think about certain things. Even my desk right now is set up like a drum set. It's like hard to imagine if you're not a drummer, but like there's like my hi-hat, my toms, my floor toms, and so on and so forth. But if for you there was one thing that you love, that you're great at, and that you can get paid for, and I'm forgetting all of the rest, what do you think that would be?
It's funny because I say this to my wife and she always like, you're not going to last an hour doing it. Like, sure. I love hospitality. Like there's something about the manager at the hotel, the maitre d' at the restaurant, the person checking the tables, like just making sure people's experience is good and fixing it when it's not. Like I've spent so much of my life doing that on brand side, on SaaS side. Like I don't touch CS or sales at Yotpo, but for some reason, so many of the complaints come to me because they know I can fix it. Like I've spent my whole career fixing things. Like many people that know me from Twitter know me because I used to jump in on somebody shitting on Olipop and say like, what can I do to fix it? That's been my whole career. And something about doing that in real life and de-escalating and making sure like blowing somebody away experience-wise feels fun. My wife is usually more realistic than me, so she might be right that it would suck the life out of me as an introvert. But I was at a restaurant last night and I saw like the owner just walking around checking in on tables. Anything I can do to make this better? How's the steak? Something about that feels, I keep thinking like, should I ask a restaurant to just do it for an hour? Like, can I try one night? Can I just be the person that checks in on people and tries to, oh, are you celebrating anything?
Amazing. Yeah. Coming from the hospitality business or the nightlife industry, you wouldn't think that running a bar that's a restaurant in the day and nightclub at night would teach you so much. And to this day, my fiance will tell you the most important person I've ever met in my career, my business career, was the GM of that place. It's a famous place called Sharky's. Now they have like an Esperanza and all of these different things. And they taught us to greet customer. Even if you couldn't serve a customer, it was, hey, I'll be right with you. Make eye contact. I'll be right with you. And every time I go into a restaurant now and there's like a paper towel that's not perfectly cut, or the tables are wobbly, or the sports programming has like the same game on, adjacent TVs. There's so many things that I learned from there. Ice in the salsa bar, that I think that is sort of attention to detail has helped me in my career in marketing. I think hospitality is I think everyone should at least have, a year or two experience, no matter how shitty the job is.
Oh gosh. You're not helping the situation here.
It was my favorite. It was punishing. I think that I had a pretty good job at escalating, but we have these like battery powered candles, and there was a candle behind the salsa bar. And this is a famous story I tell my team at Growthbuster. The battery went out. And the owner came in with the GM, who was then at that time the regional GM, so the GM of all stores. And they pulled me outside and said, how the fuck did this candle go out? I'm like, dude, I'm like doing a million different things. And there's no excuses. You just own it. And in my head, I'm like, all of these reasons are why it's out. And I just said, I fucked up. So that thing's really humbling. It was really rewarding, but I don't think I'd be here today without that experience.
Wow. Damn.
Yotpo. So I was a hater until you got hired there. I had a bad experience with Outer Isle, and it seemed as though the team didn't care. And we churned, and it was just like, all right, see you later. But once you said, hey, I'm working there, I was like, I'm a fan. We haven't used it since, and we probably will at some point. But I think that your job of turning all of the people, of course, there's certain people who haven't jumped over to be fans of Yotpo. But I think that you've done a great job at changing the culture and making it more like, hey, I actually like Yotpo.
I have goosebumps. I think for a few reasons. I think number one is like the thing that you're describing, the thing that like I spend money, something goes wrong. I don't feel like anyone cares. Like that thing, you can't point out as to why you're sure nobody cares, but they didn't make you feel like they care. Now, there may have been like something I see now internally being on the other side. And again, like Yotpo has evolved and changed, but some of it's like core culture that's been around for 13 years. Something I see as an example, right? Like somebody escalates something. They'll send me a note, whether or not I think they're full of shit, meaning like, yeah, that's not a reason to like ping me at 1 a.m. because you didn't get a response in 6 hours. But whether or not I think so, I'll flag something and I'll see like just 12 people on a Friday night jumping in to solve it. And what I feel like Yotpo did a subpar job at is even if they were attempting to solve it, they never in the interim followed up and made the person feel like X, Y, and Z, or they didn't try to solve it, which again, like part of Yotpo's culture has been grow, take on more and more and more. And then as a customer, you're like, why would I think they care about me when they're launching 6 new tools and gaining 10,000 more customers? And every time I get to a renewal, they charge more money. And part of it is culture. Part of it is just when you grow at that rate and you raise a bunch of money and you need to figure out like, what's the short-term win that I can show for next quarter versus when you get to a certain size, you say, okay, now I built a business. How do I make it a good business? How do I keep people around by not just forcing them into contract, but actually making them enjoy their time here, right? Like, yes, you can sign somebody to a 7-year contract. It doesn't matter. Side note, I think it's funny when everyone complains about contracts in SaaS, when it's like, you don't throw out your car lease because you found a cheaper car lease. You don't move out of your apartment because you found a better deal. But in SaaS, for some reason, it's like, well, Attentive is offering me $10 less than Klaviyo. Let me like shame them online for Klaviyo not letting me jump out of my contract. Side note. But I think the thing about Yotpo that's interesting to me is like the people I met, like I talk about this when people say like, why would you join Yotpo? The people I met, so I meet Tomer, speak to him for an hour and a half. Then I go have coffee. We sit for 3 hours. And combination of childhood trauma and EQ, people. Like I don't have super high Q, but I know people. And I know when somebody's shitting me, and I know, and I'm like, this guy is not at all what I imagined. Then he introduces me to 3 other people. And the same thing, I'm like, this doesn't match. Like the people I'm talking to, the way they think about business, the way they think about experience, and what customers are getting just doesn't make sense. Like I'm missing something. And I think the more I dive into it, the more you see there are these little things, right, that you can change to make that better. But I think part and parcel of Yotpo stepping up is acknowledging that they've done a lot of things that piss people off. And that is what it is. And 99% of those people are no longer at Yotpo. And maybe it was some bad hires, maybe it was bad culture. At some point, I will never like that when somebody's like, oh, like Moyes hates Yotpo. Cool. Love that for him. I will never try to change that. There are going to be a lot of other people that say, oh, 8 years ago, Yotpo was X, Y, and Z. And I'm open to maybe the fact that the pricing got better and they actually changed as a company, as a culture. And I get it. Like, trust me, I've left Yotpo 3 times. I get it if somebody thinks it'll never change. But just the idea that like everyone's open to almost everything changing. But for some reason, like a SaaS company from 8 years ago is like impossible. But that's like all my desire at Yotpo is like, how do I bridge like the bridging the gap of what I found as my perception and what I found as the instinctual reality. And I just think the gap is so big that was like, how can I say no? Like if I'm seeing something that nobody else is seeing, can I A, try to make it better, B, try to show people what I see? And if I fail, this might sound insane, Vasa, but like I've won too much, not personally, but like I've worked at the winning brands. I want to do something hard. And that's like kind of like why people thought I was insane when I went to Yotpo. But the most enjoyable thing is that it's actually need to use my brain versus every other job. You wake up in the morning and they're printing cash. And that's like, most people would like it. For me, it's a challenge.
Yeah, I think it's one of those big turnarounds. Like I saw something on Twitter or X recently about like a Marvel or I think it was Marvel or DC castmate that got like improved. I think it was a Fantastic Four or something where like they're saying that the cast is much better now than it was like 15 years ago. And I feel that kind of same way about Yotpo. Like you don't see stinky posts online anymore from people complaining and adding a founder, which is going to segue into the next topic I want to jump into. But it seems as though you've done a good job. Yes, there's been a few people that still kind of poke, but for the most part, I don't hear anything bad about Yotpo anymore. So I just wanted to say good job.
It means a lot. And I think the short term, like my hypothesis going in, I was like, wouldn't it be interesting if hating Yotpo is so easy because there's no person, right? It's like easy to hate a tool. But wouldn't it be interesting if the person that I can't think of very many people that hate me. Like I recently found some random people that I never spoke to that blocked me on X, and I think that's funny. But like there's maybe 1 or 2 people that I did something really not super nice to that maybe don't like me. But it's like I'm a pretty well-liked individual, at least online. And I think like it became harder to hate when I'm standing in between. Like it's like, if you want to hate Yotpo when I'm getting the hate, at least explain why, and not just like be the kid. Like Yotpo is just the kid at the playground that people just like, why not? Right? Like it was like the joke. Even people that never used Yotpo was like, and I'm part of that, certainly, but I appreciate it.
Why do you think, and I've seen this more, I don't know if I'm just more chronically online because of 2 different jobs and one of them's in social media or what it might be, but I've seen a tendency for people to just go online at a founder, whether it's the Shopify president or founder, Harley, or I don't know what his role is. I'm not that kind of person that has like people's pictures up or like connecting investigative reports and shit. But why do people at founders and brands and bring it in a public space when it could just be a DM saying, hey, my shit broke, can you fix it?
Most of these people are, I saw somebody talking about it on Twitter the other day. It's like keyboard warriors, but it really is like I'm not going to name names, but there are 3 or 4 people that have said so many insane things to me online, and I met them face to face, and they were just like the nicest, kindest people. And one of them, I actually made a joke about it on LinkedIn. Like he was saying something about Yotpo, and I was like, isn't it funny that we had such a great conversation yesterday at the Cabanas, like at Shop Talk? It's just like, I think people are strange, feel like it's easy to be a keyboard warrior. Some of them are a little, on a spectrum of sorts. Like I say this often, like there's a reason why we're famous online and don't have like real friends in person. Like the people that are chronically online are a little funny, right? Like I prefer being online than in person at a happy hour. But the people at a happy hour are like, you have Twitter. I'm never on Twitter. It's very rare for somebody to do both well. So a lot of people that are chronically online are a little weird, including myself. But I think it's also like, it's this massive dissonance between like, if you wouldn't say that to a person, it's pretty weird to say that online. But also like, yeah, I don't know that the president of Shopify has to get pinged because like your invoice didn't come in the day it should. It's just like, when you think about it that way, it's like, oh, so the C-level exec at Shopify, when he goes to pee and he scrolls through his Twitter, he needs to escalate your issue? Like, is that how important it is? And it's a level of delusion too. But
I think that it's wanting a little bit of attention. Like when people mention a celebrity or something like that, it's like they want to feel validated maybe or something. I think there's better ways to do it. And I do agree that I think people say things online that they definitely wouldn't say in person. I jokingly bought CPGFC.com, Consumer Packaged Good Fighting Championship. And I think that there's I just buy URLs just to joke around here and there, but I really think that it might come true. Like the Anthony Gustin talking shit on Peter Rahal from David about the COD. And like, it's something that's so insane where like, if there was a bet on Kalshi or Poly Market on there being like a founder fight before like a Jake Paul, like on an undercard, I would take it 100%. And I hope somebody buys CPGFC.com from me.
CPG, by the way, in general is a little insane. Like CPG, the amount of drama that goes on, even on LinkedIn, I'm like, holy moly. It's like a couple hundred founders. We're not even talking about like.
It's constant drama, which is why like I have a new cathartic way of dealing with it. Like I'm taking quotes from people. I'm basically creating, someone said it's the TBPN of CPG, but I started doing this last summer was CPGSPN. And I got that from terrible example, but Antonio Brown does his CTESPN. But that was my inspiration. And I'm just taking quotes and all of the crazy shit that happens and just putting content out there because I think if people want drama, someone's got to do it in a way that's a little bit lighthearted and funny.
Agree.
What's your take on David and COD?
What I like about David is they're not playing silly game. Like they're taking big swings, and anyone that takes a big swing, like if you're in the arena, I'm into it. I think that they're not going to sell COD long term. I think it's just like a fun little cutesy thing, but I think it's fun. I think it's less expensive than people think. Like I think doing something like this, like you just find a co-packer. The branding is one person just mocking it up on a Tuesday. Like when I think like we used to do this like at Olipop all the time when it was like, like April Fools, we would design a little whatever. But when you think about how reasonably affordable MOQs are for a product like this, like I think we'll probably see more brands do this kind of stuff. Like that stunt agency used to like just like they made those what was that company that made the red sneakers, like those red boots?
Mischief.
And I think about it like that. Like I think CPG brands will do more of that kind of stuff. Like it's reasonably easy. I mean, like if Obvi has 37 SKUs for their collagen because they can just print out flavors, like why are brands not doing this kind of stuff? David's different because you're talking about like, it's a different shipping method. They're probably drop shipping because I can't imagine you're getting like a cold storage warehouse just for your COD. I think David's bold and I like bold. I've never tried the product, but I like bold.
Yeah, I'm a fan of it. I think it's a great clapback to the people that just created so much drama. People will go from LinkedIn and then subtweet on Twitter. And then I love seeing like the founder, Peter, coming in saying, hey, great take on someone that just absolutely tried shitting on him. It's just too much. I think that there's too many influencers going inside of grocers and shitting on brands, and there's too many founders shitting on brands. And I always put the tweet out probably every couple months. There's too many founder on founder violence and not enough founder on innovation set violence, because these innovation sets, I think, are what we should really be focusing our energy on, because I think they're a joke.
Couldn't agree more.
I want to jump into your favorite campaign that you've run, either with a company that you've been with or any campaign that you've seen with a company that you have not been with.
So I'll answer both. Like something I really enjoyed in the early days of Olipop, we did like a flavor exclusive Whole Foods like holiday flavor. And we actually surveyed like 10,000 customers to ask them which they prefer. And I thought that was like a fun way of building brand / community in the early days. It was like blackberry vanilla or blueberry vanilla. And Ben, our CEO, had both like formulated. And I thought that was like such a fun way. And when we ended up launching it, so many people that voted for it just purchased because they're like, I had a hand in this. So I thought that was fun. In general, I think Vacation, the sunscreen brand, like I just think that they are so masterful at building a world. And I saw recent numbers, like they're actually doing super well, which I personally love the scent profile. Like I buy their products. I buy the car air freshener. I buy the sunscreen. I think it's a good product. But I love, like, they had this at some point in time, this is like in the peak kind of like NFT world, but they were like giving people their own title. So like you were like the VP of pool service extension, whatever. I just thought that they, like, you can tell when a founder has really good creativity, and it's usually the practical person near them that says like, stop it, and just hits them on a wrist. And when that person is not there, or the founder is more strong-willed, or whoever the creative person is, it's just beautiful when things feel creative versus like how many people will copy the Olipop launch and how many people will copy whatever. Like there's very little originality in CPG, but when it happens, like I just love creative, like One Trick Pony, the peanut butter brand, changing the entire shape of a peanut butter container. Like that's fun. And I think more brands should take swings like that. It's practical, but I think it's like they got millions of impressions by just like flipping it upside down and going crazy on the branding. But even on campaigns, like I just think we're probably not having enough fun. When you look at like Red Bull, right? And like Red Bull is 1,000 miles ahead and they've been doing it for 1,000,000 years. But I think we need to like give ourselves a little bit more crazy energy.
I think people want to come to the table with ideas that are just far too polished for a brand. It's like saying, hey, I want to put a Ferrari engine in my lawnmower. Like startups shouldn't be that polished. And I hate to point blame, but my personal experience has been when people that come from Procter and Gamble or White Wave or all of these big businesses come to a startup, it's like the opposite sides of magnets not wanting to go together. It's awful. I think that's what's keeping people from having more fun. But that's just my opinion. Last thing. Mobygate triple whale. What went on? Why is everyone so upset? Why are grown men fighting with each other over a cool launch from a brand that did no harm? Or did they do some harm behind the scenes that I don't know about? What happened?
It's a good question. I think like there have been a lot of like good takes on this. I think most of the people that complained about it are either aspirational influencers that are just annoyed that they weren't chosen, or they're people that are already influencers and are annoyed that they weren't chosen. The general like outrage of caring so deeply that maybe somebody will trip over it and not know it's sponsored, and then trip over the demo, and then trip into the using Triple Whale for $20 million a year, and you just care so deeply about the industry or FTC guidelines, is a fucking sham. Like I don't believe it. I don't buy it. I don't think people care that deeply about FTC. And I don't think people care that deeply about the ecosystem that it bothers them that somebody X, Y, and Z. Now, full disclosure, I was paid and I posted it and I wrote hashtag triple whale partner, and I could have put it in every single tweet in my thread. But I don't think the outrage is, I think it's just silly outrage by people that potentially already had a dog in the fight, that they don't like triple whale. It's hard to hate a company that just executes at that level. Like triple whale, when you look at them on the outside looking in, they built a solid product, got a ton of hype, hired very fast, then let go of half plus of their team, went back to basics in the age of AI, rebuilt their entire product infrastructure to build AI agents to change the way e-com looks. This business went from crazy growth to shrinking to massive growth again. I mean, like there are very few in the SaaS e-com space that can do this. So I respect the hell out of those people. And they don't know how to do things small. So they probably spent, if I have to guess, a couple $100,000 on this. And if you're mad because like, oh my God, everyone's posting similar things. Have you ever seen an influencer post their makeup? So it doesn't bother you because they wrote hashtag partner? Give me a break. I think it's fake outrage. I think Triple Whale will continue to kill because they make great product. I think D2C Twitter is a fraction of the actual audience that uses it. And I think arguably tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands or millions of impressions were made. And it's a fantastic execution. And most of these people, like I said, either wish they were sponsored and I can try to send them a Venmo, or they're sponsored but not by Triple Whale, and for some reason that made them feel a certain kind of way. At FTC, please help is like arguably. Maybe I would love for somebody to convince me otherwise that these people just have a really strong care about D2C Twitter and just want to keep them safe.
For what it's worth, I think that it was masterfully done. I could not see it, but I hate when just negative stuff detracts from a pretty cool launch. The only thing I will say is I don't like when there's that sort of launch with that sort of noise or music, depending on how you look at it, and the product is ass. So as long as they deliver on it, just like a consumable, as long as they deliver and there's that sort of, endorsements from people, whether they're paid or unpaid, it should be all good.
I couldn't agree more. The one thing that bothers me, and maybe this is because I'm like, I tend to feel like I root for other people's success. The one thing that does bother me, like for the 10% of people that really deeply care about FTC and disclosure, and the 10% of people that really care about guarding the minds of founders that won't know that it's whatever and think that they need to use Triple Whale, like putting those 10%, maybe 15%. So like, let's look at the other 80%. What possesses you to take a crap on somebody that's doing like, why take a shit on people? And you wouldn't do it in person. Like none of those people would walk over to the Triple Whale founder and be like, how dare you? It's just like and somebody's point yesterday on my tweet, which is correct. It's the internet. Like I think the internet just rewards this kind of behavior, but something just tickles me in the wrong way of like, what? It's just a certain kind of person that always likes to root for other people's demise. And I want everyone to win. Like I want Yotpo's competitors to continue doing well. I want the TAM to expand. Like I truly don't want anyone to fail. Like I want every previous company I worked at to crush, even though I gained nothing from it. Like I want them all to succeed. And it's a very weird vibe for somebody to be like, no, these guys suck because they didn't tell their influence. It's just weird. But I think it's D2C/internet energy.
I'm going to leave this episode with this thought. I would bet everything that the people that are the most negative on the internet do one or all of the following things. They probably don't re-rack their weights. They probably don't turn their blinker on when they're changing lanes. And they definitely do not return their shopping carts. And I'll leave it with that.
You might be right on all of the above. Yeah.
Eli, thanks so much for joining, man. It was awesome chatting with you. I feel like I could go on forever with you.
Always a pleasure.
Appreciate you, man.